Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the book review here at CCXP Exam Simulator. It's been a long time since I've published one of these. I've been incredibly busy with a startup that I've been working on, but what a way to come back. Nicholas Webb wrote the book What Customers Hate. I'm going to be reviewing it today. He's one of my favorite customer experience authors. He actually wrote a book many years ago called What Customers Crave. And to this day, it still has one of the best methods for segmenting out your customers in terms of personas. He asks two very simple questions. What do you love and what do you hate? And from those two simple questions, he's able to break people out into small different groups and then design differentiated experiences for them. So I'm a big fan. I was very, very pleased when he agreed to let me have an advanced copy. I actually read it a few months ago and I've been meaning to do this review for a long time, but like I said, I've just been swamped. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So my notes are as follows, my top takeaways from this book. So here's a good quote. Reviews that have specific hates are a powerful deflector of customers, and customers follow the crowd and hate what others hate. And I actually just had this happen to me the other day. I was meeting a friend for lunch here in Springfield and just happened to mention a business that I used to go to and dine at and how I would never go back again because of how they treated me. And my friend surprisingly said to me, well, you know what? I've never been there and I'm never going to go there now. So I wasn't actually trying to influence her, but again, we don't want to run into bad situations as people, so we look to people that we know and trust, and we use kind of their opinions as proxy. So you've got to be very careful when you get bad reviews from people, because other people can see those reviews and then they'll form their opinions, and suddenly it's like a snowball effect. And also the other thing that's interesting about this quote is that specific hates are mentioned as well. And that kind of brings me to my next quote. Reaching out to haters is the ultimate form of building customer insights. So those specific hates can actually be very useful. It's pretty obvious, really, if you think about it. There's different things that people are talking about all the time. You're seeing them come up consistently. You should always address them. But if you really want to sort the problems out in your business, just go out to people that aren't happy and just ask them what they would do. I did a podcast interview recently, and it was mentioned to me by the host that a company called Big Ass Fans really grew their business simply by going out to customers and asking them, what is it that you're just not too happy with? It doesn't even necessarily have to be hate, but just what's not great about the product? What could we fix? And it could be anything from the unboxing experience to the instructions, you name it. And they were able to take those insights and just build amazing customer insights. So yes, it was Adrian Swinsco's Punk CX podcast, by the way, in case anyone wants to look that up. In his book, Nicholas basically says that customer choice totally amounts to the business you hate the least, and we can dovetail that in with the next point, which is your customers are always settling for second best. So in his book, he comes up with this idea of the ideal economy, which doesn't actually exist, but it basically would be where you can pretty much have whatever you want immediately, and we know that's not possible. So businesses try and get us as close to that as possible. So Ian Stoker, a friend of mine in the CX world, he always says, our jobs to be done have never changed. It's just the products that get us there that have changed. So something that you wanted to do, like be in contact with a loved one, many, many years ago, your best option could have been, writing letters, Then it suddenly became, okay, now we can have a phone call. Now we can, Skype with one another or have a direct conversation over FaceTime. So the technology gets better and better and better, but ultimately the fundamental jobs that we're trying to solve are still exactly the same. And so essentially, a number of different businesses try and solve your problem, but whoever gets there the closest is the one that you normally will choose, but it's second best to the idealized economy. And that's essentially what we're all trying to get to as businesses. Nicholas creates this really interesting idea of hate safaris. So think about it, that you're going on a safari, but rather than trying to look at all the weird and wonderful creatures in the world, you're actually looking at all the really weird and strange hate that exists for your business. And you have to not just look at the obvious ones, but lots of different types of research methods that should be employed, because ultimately what we're trying to do is there could be one sort of edge case that might be the beginning of a new trend. So we really want to try and understand all of those things that really upset people, and then start making amends, start finding ways to eliminate and eradicate those bad experiences. So he basically recommends getting together and doing regular hate safaris. And he said ultimately either you know what customers hate and you're simply unwilling to change, or you haven't bothered to inquire. Now, this kind of goes both ways. There are some businesses that are kind of just like not really paying attention, so they don't really see a lot of the issues that are going on in their business. And then there are other companies that kind of know what's going on, but there could be a number of different reasons why they're unwilling to change. It could be that maybe there's not enough slack in the business, so people are just running at full throttle, and there's kind of this mentality of, well, we'll get to it eventually, or it's not hurting our business that much right now, so we'll deal with it, we'll kick the can down the road. But then there's, like I said, there's plenty of these different reasons why these things can happen, of course, all the way to the downright malicious, where the people just don't care about the customer. And ultimately that comes back to burn them. But essentially, yeah, the hate is out there, and you either know about it and you don't care, or you just haven't bothered to look for it. So if you haven't bothered to look for it, hopefully you're in the latter category, then you need to start doing hate safaris. He talks about this really interesting idea of love points versus hate points. So basically all the different things that customers like about your business, you could say, give you love points, and all the different things they hate about the business give hate points. And then they sort of add them up in their head, and that sort of helps them in terms of like deciding on whether they want to participate in a value exchange with your company or not. If someone's had lots and lots of hate points, then they're less likely to do business in the future. The more love points you can accumulate, obviously, the better. I would say, as an additional piece of information on top of this insight, the more love points you can accumulate in the early stage of the experience will actually buy you a little bit of grace, because, there's two reasons for this. So this firstly is because the early perceptions kind of are remembered better in terms of customer experience. But also it translates to mood as well, mood and balance. So we have kind of like a balance with all of the different relationships that we have in life, and that's why you hear people say things like, well, this relationship is unbalanced, or it's heavily weighted in favor of this person. And so if you feel that you have an unbalanced relationship and it's a negative one, then you'll feel very unhappy. Alternatively, a business could give you an unbalanced relationship actually in your favor. They do so many things for you. It just fills you with, I guess you could say, these love points. So balance is very important, and people, when they feel imbalanced, they feel a need to restore it. And so that's why people will start to get hateful or start to get resentful. And that's where mood comes from as well, because if let's say you have a series of experiences in one longer overall experience, and the early ones are bad, they will tend to color your view of the rest of them. So let's imagine we're rating them out of 10, and the first early stage experiences are like a 3 or a 2. The other ones could all be 8s, but you might actually experience them as 5s, because everything's been colored, and that's essentially how moods are designed. The way our brains work is moods tend to change your motivational levels and your energy levels. So it's worth bearing that in point as well, is just to make sure that if you do going to have a sequence of events and maybe you need to fix a lot of them, you might try fixing the earlier ones in the experience first if you have to prioritize, because that might gain you a bit of leverage in the long run while you're trying to fix the other ones. And he also said eliminate what employees hate. And there's some very interesting studies that he's referenced in the book, but basically we all kind of know anyway that very unhappy employees are not going to make the best customer service reps. They're not going to pay the most attention and the most diligence to internal processes. So ultimately we want to make sure that the employees are very happy, and a good way to start is just to start eradicating all of the different things that they don't like. He says a 2019 study found that 20%, or actually just over 20% of employees spend more than 5 hours on the clock each week worrying about their stresses and worries. Now this is dangerous because obviously if these people are doing that, it's sucking energy away from them, it's putting them into a bad mood. All the things that I'd mentioned previously in this review, those are all going to have a knock-on effect to the customer experience. So must always bear that in mind when we're looking at employee experience initiatives. It may not be such a bad idea to actually just make the company policy, let's just find out the things that the employees hate the most and let's just get rid of that immediately. And then a final point he makes, I thought this was just really interesting. It's not really dark patterns that customers get involved in, but I thought it was worth mentioning. He mentioned in his book about when we talk about acquiring a new customer, and he says, he gives an example, $33 to get a new customer, but many people will say $0 to keep one. Is that definitely true? And it's just a mind shift. Is actually, to keep a customer, you might want to think about a budget for that as well, because you really want to start treating your loyal customers in return for all of the value that they provide you. So rather than just someone keeps coming back because they keep getting great customer experiences, okay, that's great, but is there anything we can do to really firm that up and actually put a little bit budget into that, rather than just throwing all money into the marketing dollars as well? And I'm not really talking about just like only focusing on retention. I think that both of them are very important, but I do think that retention gets completely neglected sometimes because of a lot of the studies that are coming out from places like, you're pretty familiar with that book, How Brands Grow, that show that the focus on acquisition is very important. But I do think that it's very important also to remember, hey, there are some people that have been very loyal customers. Let's just do something for them. And another great point he makes in the book, I haven't listed it as one of my top takeaways, but if somebody does decide to leave, giving them really great last touch moments as well. So even though they may not do business with you in the future, or it might be a long time before they come back, you have a very signature sign-off moment as well, so that they always remember that. And of course, those memories linger and hopefully will persuade them to come back one day in the future. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the book. Like I said, I'm hoping to have a few more of these reviews coming up in the next few months, getting back into the swing of things now, and there's so much good material out there. We definitely need to review it, but for now, I can wholeheartedly recommend Nicholas Webb's book, What Customers Hate. If you guys need to reach me or you have any suggestions, you can just go ahead and drop me a line at support@ccxpexamsimulator.com. Until next time, take care, guys. Bye-bye.